So that went quite well, didn't it?
Good.
Have a look. How handy though. Good morning, everybody. Please come in and find a seat. And we will be ready to kick off our meeting. Now, in a good way.
Yep, we're good.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council held in Roxburgh, which is wonderful to be here for the first time in probably since 1989, I suspect. And a excellent turnout in the public gallery, which is wonderful to see. Going to be giving me meeting with Katia, Te Hora, Te Marino, Te Whakapapa, Te Mama Tanzana, Te Huaraki, Mata Kawiki Rā, Paraha Atu, Araka Mai, Tapo Kia Tata Katoa. Peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, give love, receive love, let us show respect for each other, join, gather, unite. It is going to be a little bit tricky today. We have discovered that the sound is not that great here due to the wooden floors. So if you need to cough, splutter and or otherwise shuffle around and make noise, please pop outside. We just have to be quite careful with our chairs and additional noise so that people can still hear when they are joining online. Apologies for this morning. We have apologies from Lindley Claridge and apologies from me for an early departure, please. I'm happy to move those. If somebody, thank you, Martin. Happy to second those. All those in favour? Against carries. And Councillor Duncan will be joining us online. First up, we have the Community Board Chair update. Welcome, Norm. I'm so pleased you didn't have very good day.
Say it again, sorry.
I'm pleased you didn't have very far to travel today.
No, it's good. So this morning, basically, all I wanted to do is say a big thank you to you guys, Mayor Taylor, Peter, councillors, staff, for making the effort to come along to this meeting here, so our people can be, have more access to council and present their thoughts. It's been quite important. We've, over the last 3 years, we've tried to, as a board, we've tried to expand our communications. It's very difficult when you've got such a range of, I guess, methodologies to communicate, but face-to-face is the most successful one we've found. I'll take this agree with me. So just a huge welcome and a big thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Norm. We now move into the public forum and we have a number of people to speak, which is very exciting. Has Candy arrived online as we move on?
Yeah.
Susie Jones, welcome. You can stand or you can have a seat if you like.
I'm still feeling into the community. Unfortunately, I was overseas when we had some prior meetings to do with the long-term government plans. But one of my concerns seems to be that rates have increased over the last number of years. But we don't seem to be being told we're going to get a decrease in rates, and yet we're going to get a separate entity that's now going to run our interest. So I'm just wondering if someone can try to clarify that with me.
Absolutely. Would you like me to do that now? Would you like to think? Yep. Okay. So we are aware that Three Waters costs are going to go up exponentially over the coming years as we move to upgrade all of our systems and make sure that we comply not only with the community's expectations, but also with the increased expectations coming out of the government. The CCO has been proposed and put together with 2 other councils because that is the least expensive option. So they're going to go up. But at the moment, our rates will go up like that, and water rates under a CCO would still go up at a lesser rate, which would be compounding over time to savings, but still going to be spendings. That's the really difficult thing, is that people will see a reduction in their rates bills from CODC, but acknowledging they can get a separate.
Because we will see a reduction in our CODC bills.
Yes, so if you're connected to a town supply of water, your rates bill wouldn't remain the same, but you would get a second bill from the water CCO.
And I guess that's my other question. I'm a fairly fortunate person that I currently benefit from the Miller's Black Water. So does that mean this won't affect us, or is there any concerns that we should be made aware of?
There are regulations coming that will comply to anybody who's providing water for public consumption. So if you're on a private scheme, there's still going to be increased scrutiny of your water. We obviously only control schemes that are owned and operated by council, but like for me personally, we're on a private scheme and we're working through what that process will look like.
So if the scheme is small as Miller's, which I think only supplies just over 25 households, is it going to be feasible?
Well, we've stepped that on a smack property and around something when regulated, that might be done from council and be direct from the board regulated.
Okay, so the fact that we've got a system in place that works perfectly for the community, very cost effective, is that a fair, I mean, I understand Three Waters being done because a lot of communities don't have a healthy water supply, whereas we do. Is there an option for Miller's Black to opt out?
No, and then the supply property does comply with the requirements because of the requirements that and council supplies and probably similar to scheme and not with the municipality and maybe required to do more.
I do have a small piece of good news, particularly for you, Susie, and that is that our former mayor, Tim Cadogan, who has gone to work for the water regulator, previously had a title that meant that he supported local government with their water regulation, but apparently he has a new contract and the local government clause has been taken out. So Tim is available for support for private water schemes, and I can send you his contact details so that you can talk to him about what it would mean.
Yeah, I'm also personally involved with the Tibet irrigation, and that concerns me here because I see that's a beautiful service that the valley has, that without those sort of things, then additional compliance, that could really affect the local community.
Yeah, and if people were drinking the water, the pressure has come on from the regulator to make sure it is guaranteed safe, as opposed to we think it's safe or we like it or we're happy with our water. There's no ability now for you to say, I know we're happy, don't worry about us. The regulator is regulating, which is difficult.
I just had one other issue that I wanted to just try and clarify. I noticed in our rates that we used to have more of a breakdown. So going back to 3 or 4 years, we used to show separation, whereas now it's everything seems to be lumped together, and I can't quite understand the differentiation of cost. So just understanding this. So previously we had a recreational and cultural charge. For me personally, that was around $300, $400 a year for the last 3 years. But this year we don't seem to show that charge, but we jumped up to $982 for community facility charge. So I think you might be able to kind of explain that and why we're not getting more of a breakdown.
Yeah, so what happened, possibly while you're away, we districtised a number of our services across all of Central Otago. So now if you live in the Teviot Valley, you pay the same amount for community facilities as if you live in Cromwell, if you live in Paria. So everything is spread evenly across the district. So that means that different categories, whereas before, if you're in the Teviot Valley paying your recreation and culture charge, that was a different charge from the other wards. So now all of the wards will pay the same.
So we've doubled the charge.
Yeah, but some of the other charges have been lumped in together to that. So where things were separated out into different lines, like you said on your bill previously. But we do have a breakdown of what is entailed in that charge. Does that fall under your team, David?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Yeah, so we can get that to you.
$1,000 per household for community facilities when we have a library.
Yeah.
Is there much else?
Swimming pools, libraries, museums,
yeah.
there's quite a lot in there, but we can get a breakdown for you to let you know what that is.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thank you.
Can I just want to ask a question that will clarify something? That the change in rates will only apply to those as a result of Three Waters changes if you are on a Three Waters
If
system.
you're on a town supply.
So if you've got a farm like Tracy, Three Waters changes are going to affect her rates one little bit.
No. Thank you very much. Ms. Jones? Welcome to Jebel Good.
Hi, just wanted to, a couple of things, I've been on the community board for 3 years, coming 3 years now, and during that time, we've had one mayor tell us to take out a reverse mortgage so we can cover our rates. And another mayor tell us that we can't afford to pay our rates now, we won't be able to in 2 years' time. We can't get anything, the unsexy stuff done in what's urban channeling. We can't get rooms mowed because the council's got no money. And yet, all the time council was negotiating with the client at Miller's Flat. So I understand $280,000 has been taken out of the district. And I'd like to know if any of the money is coming back to serve us.
Do you want me to do that?
That's up to you.
Okay. Or maybe if you want to cover off how it's come
Yeah.
about, and then I can cover it.
I can cover that, how can. So back in July 2022, when the Redford Community Boards and Council to authorise the mining underneath Hawthorne One, which is the areas where there's some unformed rights. So council, community owns the land there that constitutes those unformed paper rights. The decision was made at that point that the royalties received for any gold found under those 4 unnamed roads would be credited to the Road and Administration Management of the COD6, so district-wide, and voting was already districtised back then. And then subsequently, in May of this year, council agreed to the split of those royalties, 165 to the Roading Emergency Works Fund, and 120K to the Emergency Event Fund. And if you recall back in the recent floods a few years ago here, the money from the Works Fund would have been used to fund the requirements to rectify and remediate from the slips and all that sort of stuff. So the money from the royalties has gone back into the roading emergency account. And so all within the district, wherever the next emergency is, event, then it's most likely that the proceeds of that will be applied to help remediate.
So this is a 10-year plan, so, and like, what I understand it is you get a percentage of what the mine takes out. And all of that's just going to disappear into roading, which is already districtised. And we still can't get council to make it, it's 24 grand. You know, and we're told that we've got no money. And it'd be really nice to see some of that money over this 10-year period that we're going to be mining to bring that back into the district. You know, and I'm not asking for all of it. And I understand that council's got to take its bits and pieces out so that it can do the work that it's supposed to do, but it'd be really, really nice to have some of it earmarked to get some curbing and channeling done. You know, and I think that should be a good discussion.
What were the roads, Jill, that you thought for the curb and channel?
Well, there's a mess at Kelso Street, which is outside the supermarket on the side street there. So with the trucks coming in and out, I mean, it's just a mud culvert and it's sand and water. And King George Park, I mean, it became king in 1946, died in 1952, it's 2025. We still can't get some bloody channeling out there. And it's just years away.
Have you put
And
any service requests in relation to the puddle at Kelso Street? Have you put in any service requests to council in relation to standing water at Kelso Street? Okay.
Oh, I do have. Yeah, okay, so Mark has, the toilet down there at the end of the park is one of the most used toilets in central Otago. It's now got a, just a muddy slip. And it's unsafe. And I'm not living on health and safety, but that frontage of that park needs to be curbed and channeled, and the sump at the further other end of it, the south end of it, needs to work properly.
We'll have a look at that access to the toilets. Hopefully David is here today.
I can take it too.
Thanks very much. And second, is Andy online?
He's trying to give.
Okay, perfect. To continue with our TV Valentine board today, welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome to TV Valley. Got 5 quick points here. They're all requests and pleases. So can you please listen to our requests and please us. The first one is when it does come to the further discussion on the Cromwell Hall. Understand there's over $1 million of operating cost there that will have to be allocated somewhere, and I understand that there'll also be some interest costs and some depreciation. So the cost of running that is going to be over $2 million. It takes us an hour and quarter of an hour and a quarter to get there from here. Bear in mind it's an hour and a half to get to Dunedin. So the people here, the residents here, won't be using it as much as the people in Cromwell. And I submit that we shouldn't be paying as much, the residents here shouldn't be paying as much for a hall that we're never going to use. It's $45 million, it's a huge expenditure, and I just don't think it's fair that residents here pay the same as residents in Cromwell. It's just not right. And could, that could easily add another $150, $200 to Teviot Valley, which is so there's the place there. Second one, almost the Roxburgh Town Centre, the Roxburgh Entertainment Centre here, when that gets its rebuild, it's our one chance to shine in the sun for 100 years. It's going to be a 100-year building. It'll be a community centre. Can you please allow us some flexibility in terms of the cost there and look favourably on what will undoubtedly be some cost requests over and above what the insurance will be. It's our one chance to get something done, and please don't restrict us. We're spending $45 million in Cromwell. There's a whole lot of money going into Minnesota, and so please look at that favourably. Third thing we've got here is Three Waters, and the impact of Three Waters on us is going to be huge in both directions. One is that at the moment our CapEx and OpEx is between 25 and 33%. Of council's OpEx and CapEx cost is Three Waters. That's going to disappear. But also between 25% and 50% of the income that's going to come in isn't going to come in anymore, and that's going to disappear. So please plan for that. Hopefully when you did the considerations about how much and what is the best way to go forwards, you planned that you're going to have a whole lot of stranded overheads. What that means is you're going to have a whole lot of costs that are still stick with the council, and you've really got to think about that. You've got 2 years to do that, to think about it and get it right. I don't want to be standing here in 2 years' time and you say, well, the rates are going to go up because we've still got some overhead, because Three Waters have gone and done their thing, we're all still here. And the staff here work really, really hard, but I don't think you can have the same level of structure to support 60 or 70% of your operations. So you've got to think really hard about how that happens and what you do. So there's a please there. Second thing with the new Three Waters is that at the moment this valley is about 10% of the CODC operations. In the future, in terms of Three Waters, we'll only be 3%. Be 3%. So I ask you, how are we going to get any priority here when you've got other people outside of even CODC who've got 60 abatement notices space, and then you've got water who can't even supply boil water, no water. How are we going to get priority to get things done in the Teviot Valley here? I can't see that we can get priority. The only way I can see it is you do allow private enterprise to continue to assist. You've got two fantastic systems in the Mills Black Water Scheme, over 100 users. The Teviot Valley Irrigation Scheme has been running for many years. They both, once they make a profit, but they both contribute every year to their reserves. They've got cash reserves. Their reserves are not on the balance sheet with a loan to support the cash reserves. They've got cash reserves that they build up every year. They do a fantastic job, those two schemes, and every year they're cash positive. They're effective, they're efficient, and they do meet water requirements, and they have met water requirements for the last 40 years, and they will continue to do so. So please think about private water schemes. And they've got money in the account for capital upgrades and emergencies. Can you show the first slide, please, sir? So this slide here is an example of, it's going to come up pretty quickly. So hopefully you can all read that. So this slide, I'll distribute it to people for whom it's important, but this slide shows you the race. On the left-hand side is the Roxburgh Town race, on the right-hand side is the Millers Black race. And the 5 top rows, or 6 top rows, are all equal to each other with a similar value property. And then you get down to the very bottom and you've got district water of 685 and you've got district wastewater of 1,054. That's that price. 94.
Top flash.
So you've got some rates there of 4,000 for the west side of the Clutha and 2,000 for the right-hand side. But to be fair, you've got to also add in the estimated new water volume charge on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you've got to add what might be the private water scheme to Tebet Valley, to Merritt Flat Water Scheme, and the septic tank empty. So there you've got a cost on the left-hand side of 49% of our rates go to Three Waters, and if you're in Roxburgh, or if you're on the other side of the river, there's 26%. So that identifies to you how well the private water schemes work here. So please think that through. The private water schemes are not a bad thing. The next thing I want to talk about is that overall rates. If you go to the next slide, please, Wayne. You as governors around this table here, you've been governors for a lot of you have been here for 6 years, a lot of you are going to be here for another 3. And our rates are continuing to increase, and I really ask you, please, can you put your service glasses on, your big boy pants and your big size 12s, because you're going to have some huge costs. You're facing some huge cost reductions that you need to implement in the next few years. We've got to keep our rates down. This here shows you the rates from 2023 to 2026 in this valley have got up by 62%. 62 or 63% they've gone up in the last 3 increases, from 2515 to 4068 this year. That's an enormous increase of 62%. And it's the same with those flat who don't even use water, so we can't say it's a water related issue. And then if you add another 11% for the next 2 years, that takes you to 100% increase over a 5-year period. Do you guys want to be the guys that were in charge over that period? 100% increase for no visible increase in services in 5 years. So please do everything you can to get these rates not increasing by 11%. Because if they do, you're going to be the prize of doubling rates in 5 years. And I don't think that's good. Now, to do that, you can't just muck around at the margin. It's a mammoth task. You can't just save $10 here and $20 here. You've got to have structural change.
We're at 5 minutes, but finish up here.
Okay, they've got to have structural change, and you as councillors have to support the CEO to achieve that structural change to reduce the costs, please. So, in summary, I've just said one half of the summary. Be fair with Frog, please. Be fair with the Roxburgh Hall, please. Three Waters, look at the stranded overheads and look at the priorities for water, Roxburgh East, to support the spatial plan. I've just spent $150,000, 150,000 litres a day of water on Roxburgh East. So private water does work. You keep those rates under 5%.
Thank you, Matt. And I just want to assure you that has already been part of the discussion with the BCO. What does council look like beyond 2027 if we lose 30% of our business and 30% of our income, and also how we deal with the stranded overheads. So 100% in the mix. Right, time to go. We're just hoping to have Andy Erskine from the Commonwealth Speedway join us online.
Got Andy on speaker, and we've got Claire afterwards on the online.
Good morning, Andy and Claire.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, sorry for the lateness. Sorry to have some tech issues here, so we're here now. So thank you very much. Good morning to all. So basically, we wanted to attend today to really get some clarity around the understanding of the lease decision in regards to the amount being a substantial increase from what we previously have been paying over a number of years. Claire can probably speak a bit more clearer on the financials, but I just wanted to wind the clock back a little bit, please, if I can, and speak around pre-2020 or pre-COVID era, because yes, I understand their financials when they were reviewed by council. It appeared that we were deemed to be operating as such as a commercial business, and I understand that with the turnover. However, so and once it changed from 2020 to today, and pre-2020, we actually, as a club, I mean, Gareth will know this, we have meetings, plenty of discussions around potentially owning the land to secure it for further generations. And we were hopeful that could have happened pre-2020, and we did as a club was save, and we really, to be honest, probably didn't put enough back in to the club, into the facility, and into the grounds for that reason, because that was our primary focus. So what happened is we're obviously a not-for-profit club, and we did have money in the bank, but of course, when that dream of owning the land became non-existent, we knew we had to put funds back into the facility, back into the place to actually keep it upgraded and keep bringing it into the 21st century. So it all costs. The point is that it all costs money. Although our financials look healthy as a turnover or a trading income, the latest, as we've gone on since 2020, i.e. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, you'll notice on our financials and net profit is dropped dramatically. And this last financial year, because over those 4 years or 5 years, we've actually have put money back into the facility, and the cost of running events now has also increased. So we're actually running a loss over the last 2 years. In 2025, ending May, an $88,000 loss. The year before was $22,000 loss. So, you know, our loss is becoming more, and we've got to add, looking ahead into this coming season, we've got to add on this $50,000 less costs for the year. So, you know, we're definitely going backwards, and we just don't know if we can sustain that. You know, we all know that Speedway's been there a long time, and what it does bring benefits to the community. So we're just sort of wondering if we can negotiate this, still work on negotiate this, because if you look at our loss sheet, we're going backwards big time. So yeah, that's about all I've got to say at the moment. I'm happy to answer any questions. So if Claire wants to speak further, that would be great.
Yeah, so just on the numbers, we've also had a 23.2% decrease in revenue over the last 2 years. So that has obviously then compounded the loss of the organisation. We've had a 291% increase in our loss, in our bottom, our net loss, and we've had a 300% increase in cash expenditure. So with the decrease in our revenue, we have been putting money back into the club and into the facilities. And as Andy says, we're now running out of cash. We've got some big expenditure on the horizon for the next 2 years. We have to replace the fence and possibly the track, of which could be in excess of $300,000 cash expenditure just for those items. So having a $50,000 rent increase $48,000 rent increase is actually not sustainable for our club going forward. We also know the benefits to the community that we bring, and it would be a real shame if we had to close up shop because we can't afford to be there and we've just been priced out of the land.
Thank you. Really appreciate you joining us, Andy and Claire. We will be talking about this afternoon and that. So
Thank you.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Right, we now move to the confirmation of minutes that begin on page 5. What I was going to do first, actually, is just give one opportunity. Now that we are in the kind of brown out period of the election process as we get to the end of the training. Wayne's just going to give us a wee update at the start of each meeting about what our obligations are and future moving forward under this period.
Yes, I just thought that this is the silly season starting. Just a reminder that, you know, this is for council business, not for electioneering or.
Excuse me, can you speak up? I can't hear a single thing you say.
Carry on? Okay. I was reminding folk that, council meetings are for council business, not for electioneering or for, anything like that, campaign. So just a reminder, of that.
Maybe the minutes. Again on page 5, somebody happy to move? Thank you, Sarah. Seconded, thank you, Ian. Any discussion on those or amendments? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carries. Declarations of interest begin on page 12. Anybody have any amendments or updates to make to declarations? No. Happy to. Yes, myself. We now get to our first report, 25.15.3, the accountability report from Sport Central with Rebecca and Priscilla Live. Ben. Okay, sorry.
And Wayne's just offering the presentation. Just before we start, it's completely off topic. It's great that we're here in Roxburgh today, and I just want to do a plug for the Teviot Valley Community Plan that we're currently out for. We're currently running a community survey for the Teviot Valley Community Plan. So far, we have 45 responses, and it would be great to get that increase. So anyone from the Teviot who hasn't yet done so, there's copies out here as well as over 103 and at the electric. So just with that, we the first, but thank you very much. Thanks for being time.
Good.
Yeah, and
Can you come here for a second, please, Rebecca?
and that's the presentation.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Maybe one of these,
Okay.
not my presentation.
Right, isn't it?
That's okay. We can just talk about the presentation. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Let's go. Before we just get over to you, guys.
You just can't, so that's a shame.
I'll try again.
Wayne's going to try again, so please stand by, just 1 moment. There might be a PowerPoint version of it, not a Canva.
Should be able to.
Yeah, I would mind do that while I do my opening.
You do your opening, sounds great, thank you.
So this is the annual report back from Sport Otago to Central Otago District Council. It sets out the activities of Sport Central over the 24-25 year. Until now, it has been a contestable grant as part of the community grant process. And this was part of that reporting back process that the grants policy. Going forward, the Parks and Rec Department, but because of the close relationship between Sports Otago and the Parks and Recreation Department, in fact, there's an agreement negotiated every year, and the funding will be administered by that department in future years. Just before I hand over these guys to talk about the incredible range of activities that they want to, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank them for all of their work. Sport Otago and Sport Central worked right across our district, from Ranfurly to Roxburgh to Cromwell here and Alex here in Roxburgh. So here in Roxburgh and here in Alex, and they do amazing work. And we want to give a particular shout out for their support with our policy work, and this last year around the play strategy. In fact, they Sport Otago and Sport Central were the lead with their youth engagement through the schools through that piece of work, and we really value the contribution. So thank you guys. You guys are a pleasure to work with. And I hand it over then to talk about some of the specifics.
My question, I want to elaborate on the gym manager programs, that's what it's like. Being catered today with me, so we're going to talk about that and stuff we do. We also have two other staff members that are based in the first region. Two other coaches, one in Alexandra and one in Cromwell, just Davies and Kerr. So I think 4 operating into the district. We also have enough staff back at the Nina that provide services to CABC for things like space places, science evaluation, marketing content, that sort of thing as well. My job really is to thank you guys as a council for the continued support and relationship that we have with you guys. Founding member of Sport Central and a really key contributor to the from a financial perspective and also from a functional perspective to now achieve what we do and that sort of physical activity space. So big thank you. So I'm going to hand it over to you guys to talk some.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. So just introduce myself a bit deeper. I'm Ben Hamilton, so I'm Sport and Active Recreation Advisor for the CODC region. So essentially I work into clubs, schools and anyone in the district who wants to essentially get any sport and active projects going or assist them with some funding or any capability building, things like that. And yeah, I moved on from Rebecca and Owen, and I just want to personally thank the working relations we have with council. Rebecca, Maria, David and Peter. It's really awesome for us to work into one of our schools, two of our strategic pillars, which is partnership and influence. And we have those relationships so closely that talking about the phone and talking with you guys. And I think as a region, here we go. Sorry, let's add a bit of time there so we got nothing going. I think we can all agree that we've got a great region with our landscape. And with that, we get a lot of people with a huge energy wanting to get projects started. So it's great that we can just pick up the phone and have a chat to you guys and sort of not limit these people's energy really. So yeah. Move on to Kate now.
Kia ora, team, Lord Kate Wonder. I am the play and PE advisor in Central, so I work with early childhood centres and the primary school, so it's somebody the age down. Yeah, a little bit of my money around plays, there's some photos there. We have a whole lot of equipment that we lend out to different organisations who want to use it, so we've had 13 organisations using our Taco play trailer, which is one of those parts. Sports equipment for out here. We have a next trailer. We actually just dropped it off as another flat this morning for the sports tournament conversation. We've got inflatables, which the kids love. You can see the photo here. And we also have some soft play equipment that we share around early childhood centres. They really, really love that because they find it's really hard to get funding for some equipment for early childhood centres. So being able to share here has worked really, really well. Yeah, next slide, please. I love it in the primary school space. There's a few bits and bobs that we do. So we have a few health schools, the Healthy Active Learning schools. These are schools that have a little bit more support from me and our team at Sport Otago around their health and PE curriculum. So looking at what barriers are, it's active, if not, how can we try to get them moving a little bit more. So the Terrace and the Otago Area School signed up for that, which has been great. A few other things. So we have our Learn to Swim program that we administer. So we have 810 students from 12 schools. We have had that program as well as our PALS programs, the Sport Community Leaders programs. I went through that as a child when I was still in Bromwell, so it's like looking on the other side of it. Yeah, it's just around teaching some leadership qualities so they can then take it to their school and try and get kids as active as possible. So it's internal, so it's also in our events. It's actually good. We do some really, really cool events. We support some really cool events. We do a lot with FOPSA, so Central Otago Primary Schools Association, we live there. Science activities and championship activities. Top Bike was a real highlight this year. with, 372 competitors being part of that and balance, the video should play. So that's all for me, and just like to also thank all your partners for doing us.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, so I'll move on to a bit of my work that I've been doing for outside work in the active recreation space, which I talked about before. So over the last 12 months, the key thing we've worked on is since I came on board in September, taking over the half mile disc golf project that Joe, my predecessor, had worked on with Gordy. So essentially found further sponsorship to get that across the line and finished. And I think we'll look to have an official opening leading into the warmer months coming this year, which is cool. A cool thing we did this year was working with the Apprenticeship Network around some training events for the Monica Challenge. So a couple of times a week in January and February, we hit at the at Molyneux Park and took them through some biking and running and got them ready for the event to run over Monica and then supported them in the event over there, which was really cool. We've been working on a Women's Wednesday project, which get us here from Wellview Communities that we've worked on together. We ran a pilot earlier this year focused on migrant women in Cromwell who didn't know how to swim and didn't really had a few barriers and didn't have any access to the pool due to sort of religious beliefs and things like that. So we worked on a project and with the CODC pools team to once the pool closed, get women in there and get some only women volunteers and yeah, it's been awesome. So moving forward with that, from that pilot, we're moving forward to a 10-week full program now, which is really exciting moving through September and October. We have started a Movement Monthly, which is a monthly running event in Cromwell, just trying to get people active, really trying to push that hard through the winter months. So that's the first Wednesday every month, which is awesome. Working on the Roxburgh Bike Park. So I've been working closely with Sally, and that came about from the students at Roxburgh Area School who are really keen to get some bike jumps going here, and we've had some awesome people from the community come forward and really keen to help build it. So it's a cool project that's underway and it's growing, and again, that's been awesome support from council really to get that going, which is great. And here there's a video. A cool thing we did is to really focus on sort of some of the non-traditional sports and to get kids maybe involved in things that they maybe don't feel not so likely to get involved in team sports. So we've got to focus on a few of these, and this was a cool one here with Adeline from Circus Space in Alexandria. So if we play this video.
Helping funding for this thing. Let's look at them. This year was a fun that I agree with Bill. That will be like love it.
Teenager, for sure.
Country. So I helped page and also the whole middle. I was going to 5 years ago to share the help them. If they came up with them over a bunch of people, I think they changed for the country. I'm getting to the place where I think that the environment government is right now.
You're not getting any extra on your.
Yeah. Diverse. Yeah, cool. So he's there.
There's an ad about that, that sort of stuff. Thank
I
you.
think it's just, yeah, it's cool to highlight things like that, and obviously, don't get a whole lot of recognition, so it's cool. Then moving forward, another focus of mine is obviously sport development, so throughout the district, we have run recently some coaching workshops, so throughout Alexandra and Cromwell, and we've had 25 coaches attending, so the way we worked it out essentially is we've had, through those 25 coaches, the majority of them have been team sport coaches, so from them, they're actually supporting another 200 sort of players in our region, so if we continue to keep building those coaching workshops, it's a great way to really support a really wide amount of people, so that's something that we've started the last couple of months and we're really looking to develop and grow throughout the CLDC region. I personally supported the Ice and Line Committee. They approached us late last year around how we can help them develop and strategic plans. So I helped them put that together, facilitated a few evenings there. Constantly providing funding support to clubs and secondary schools. So when they reach out, obviously the common denominator is money, really. So trying to find, we obviously have funds ourselves, but obviously trying to find different avenues and linking them with different funders throughout and support them with applications from there. On that, I've just come up with an initiative to run some golf tournaments, organise golf tournaments for high schools here. It's just a pretty good way I found in the past to link the schools with other sponsors in the region as well as just a great way to raise some money there and here. So far I've got Cromwell College signed up, Roxgrove Area School ready to go. Alex, Dustin hiring to do one themselves, so I'll support them there and trying to get Benny and Toto over the line as well, just to make sure our support's through all across the region. Yeah, so that's probably all good for sport development stuff. We can probably skip that video. That's just yeah. Download coaching workshops. Cool. And another focus area for us is obviously in that influence space for our strategic priorities. So we have stakeholder relationships, advocacy, and our spaces and places work. So that's facilities and type direct that we work with Gordy and David on. So on that, we've submitted on the CODC long-term plan. That was obviously a big one for us because there were a lot of sport initiatives come up in that. And the Cromwell Race Course is another big one happening at the moment. So both really exciting things. And I think it's really cool to see the council looking to grow that sport and activity space. Members of our leadership team attended the Central Lakes Trust Community Outcomes Workshop in Cromwell. We are organising and constantly meeting with CODC senior leadership team, so with Peter and David and Gordy, so we make sure that we meeting regularly enough to know what's going on in the district and how we can support each other. The other thing was the Molyneux Turf Trust, so it was great to see the council support that with some funding. We worked with them, helping them get together a feasibility study to make sure it was worthwhile. We work around with local funders and the council for funding clinics in the region. So we go around each of the community board spaces really and run some funding clinics. So we open up to the public and let them know what different funds we have. And we also support Huddle, which is a new initiative based on the whole Central Otago region, which has come about essentially supporting not just organisations but non-profit and charities as a whole. So we support them on having to put events together like some workshops for governments, funding workshops and things like that. So we really push for sport, get along to those because, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so the next thing we have is our funding ourselves. So the next slide. Oh, help.
No, it's not me, it's the health team, but I'll speak to it on you. So that is also initiatives that they run for the public. One of them is the Walking Wednesday walking group. It's just on a Monday night at 5:15 for about an hour, and it's really lovely to hear the stories. And one comes back into the office of individuals who may struggle with walking each week. They're doing 5 minutes more and walk 2 kilometres instead of 1. There's some really great stories from that. They also long run 6-week little wellness group, and a little bit of feedback from that is one quote is this whole group has helped me regain my confidence in life. I've enjoyed meeting people. I've never found as good as I do now in 5 years since declining at that's had really good feedback. Yeah, and another one is she's been running a diabetes clinic, so a lot of individuals with diabetes feel quite isolated. So this is a community where people can come together and talk about how they're feeling and how they're tracking with their goals. So that's just started recently. She's providing more people.
Yeah, through the next slide. So we have community funding. So personally, we have a few funds that we administer throughout the region. Our major one is Tumanua, which is money that comes down from Sport New Zealand. Over the last year, we've provided 21,788 funding to organisations across the CODC region, which is awesome. We're going to continue to try and look and get some other applications in throughout the year. So we work closely with organisations about those applications. So that's we have a coming up 1st of August, the next one opens, so I'm currently going around and trying to get some applications of that at the moment. We also have our Sporting Chance Fund, and this one is really important as we see sort of the cost of living go up and the barrier to sport sort of goes up. So this is a fund that helps disadvantaged youth participate in sport by possibly providing fees for their memberships and their boots and shoes and things like that. This part is something that we want to keep continually grow as a Sport Otago is the need for it really rises. So through our events, that's where the money goes into and possibly work with funders and sponsors to try and get more money in that pot. So yeah, awesome. Thanks. Happy to take any questions. Yeah,
I haven't got a question, but I just want to thank Ben for the work that he's done, particularly around the opening and closing. And Kate, I think you came to the opening of the Roxburgh Pool where they brought inflatables and they really made it into a great day. I think we had a really good turnout at both of those events. So thank you for that. And also thanks, Ben, for really getting in there and getting the bike park set up with the kids. It's been a real pleasure to work with you, and I know Ben even came down before Christmas because the kids were gagging to get started, and he came down for a couple of hours with a shovel to help them actually start digging the trail. So thanks so much, Ben.
Just a question on the PALS program. Are all the primary schools still involved? Because they were some time ago, but they're still involved now?
Yeah, most of them are. We've had 3 UCOUCs join this, still join this. There's still a few coming out, but it's teacher-led once we do the training. So it is up to the school where they have a designated person who's willing to sort of organise the kids a little bit. But most, I think we've got 11 schools. 12, sorry, yeah, so we've got most.
Okay. And I guess the only other thing is just a big shout out for the Miller's Flat tournament. That probably is the highlight of the year for the kids. My kids are all grown now, and just last weekend, the boys after their rugby tournament were talking about their time at Miller's Flat together. So yeah, so it's a long-term memory. So well done to the Miller's Flat team.
There are 110 ranking sign up for you. So it's huge.
I was just gonna look like the funding clinics that was being mentioned, so we've got, funding clinics coming up in Alex and Cromwell on the 30th of August, and we've got a funding clinic here in Roxburgh on the 6th of November, and part of who's the, who's also being mentioned is that group that's, the existing support groups do what they do well, they're gonna look to align some training, free training here in the Valley at that same time, that funding clinic on the 6th of November, so that'd be pretty cool.
There are a couple of highlights for me through the report. Over 18,000 water life skills courses delivered, which is amazing. And for most of us, we would have grown up with a school full, and that is now not a common occurrence. So it is brilliant to see those, and then tied into the women only sessions. I'm so pleased that they'll be continued and that they've been run, because I think it really acknowledges the changing demographic of our society and making sure that, you know, things like religious beliefs aren't a barrier to learning how to swim. Kate, great success at our primary school. We have a couple of older girls running a hula hoops club for younger kids for their year 1 and the new entrant kids at lunchtime, which is great, and has been a awesome opportunity for some of those kids who struggle to find someone to play with at lunchtime. They go to the hula hoop club, which is pretty cool. And also acknowledge that you've noted in the report that Otago has the highest secondary school sport participation rate in New Zealand, which is outstanding. We know that kids in sports stay out of court, so.
It's not that water skills for life branch, acknowledged through the Central Lakes Trust and Council there. It really is a partnership between those three organisations to make sure that those kids get those lessons basically free for them, the transport cost for the school, but it really is the three organisations working very well together.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Move that the report be received. Thank you, Tracy, and seconded. Thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? It's carries. Much appreciated. Thank you. Moving on to some more positivity. Journey to an established community. Welcome to the community. Heather in Pullman. Sorry, Julie, I think we've got to put change because Heather needs to be away. We're not hiring.
Good, thank you. So Central Otago is a welcoming community, it's in our DNA. And with recent population growth and changing demographics coupled with our very low unemployment rate, we turned our heads to the Welcoming Communities program that is being offered nationally. The Welcoming Communities program is designed to support councils and underdeveloped communities to welcome newcomers into the district and to build an economic and competitive advantage to attract, support and retain newcomers. It is purposeful and it is targeted. The program was established, the Youth Council pilot was released in August 2017 under a national government. And with the revised local government reform, the purpose of local government focusing on the support of local economic growth and development at stays to a direct effect with underlying Central Otago District Council joined the program in 2021 on a 3-year program and it's extended to 2 years in 2021. Strategic value that this program brings to our region is both throughout the community as well as to the Queensland Council. Employees benefit through investing in their employees through upskilling and pastoral care. Communities are integrated and accepting and learning and social cohesion and participation. Schools have a regular support for their families that are coming in. We know that we've got ESOL numbers, so students that English language coming into schools more and more now, and those families are also in the school community. Government agencies are not actually really big in our region, so having support to help people navigate government processes and the healthcare systems is crucial in our region. And our organisations, as you saw before, working together with the different support organisations so that we can come together, share funding ideas, and creativity and skills is really crucial. Within council, we lead the recommended as well. We have a diverse staff in Central Otago and it helps us that induction and embedding into our organisation. we've been really confident, at least the public space, with our parks, our pools, our facilities do recognise and represent our diverse communities. So the participation is really important, especially right now when thinking leading in the elections, so helping our newcomers into our region to understand how to vote, how to speak out and how to lead our communities is crucial for us as a community, and inclusive leadership within our communities and springs on from there. The report you received in the agenda gave a snapshot of some of the activities that our local communities coordinated has been up to. And here is today, just to give a brief insight on a couple of examples.
Thank you very much, slides. Thank you. Slide 2. Thank you for the opportunity to share and celebrate Central Otago's journey to stage 2 accreditation, which recognises that we are an established, welcoming community. Slide 3, please. Let's begin by zooming in on the aged care sector. With New Zealand's ageing population and Central Otago's older than average demographic, provisioning quality aged care is essential. So how does this relate to welcoming communities? Well, if I told you that Golden View and Ribbonburn Care in Cromwell employ 118 staff, and 79% of them were born overseas, and then the remaining 21% who are Kiwis have predominantly moved to Central Otago from other parts of the country, we can see how much we need our migrants in Central Otago. Slide 4, please. Now, every one of those newcomers goes through a settlement process, and I'm sure many of us in this room can relate to that. I certainly can. When I moved here from Kenya with my 3 adolescent daughters, our downhill trajectory on this curve was at the speed of light. As dual national to New Zealand, we were not navigating immigration uncertainty. As English speakers, we're not grappling with the entirely new language. As the daughter of a staunchly Kiwi mother, I had some concept of what it means to be a New Zealander. If this was our settlement process, what does it look like for those with an entirely different culture, heritage, language, qualifications and professional experience which endure scrutiny and rigorous assessment, and no clear or certain path to residency? Attracting migrants to Central with their unique skills is the easy part, but it's the settlement process which determines whether they stay and make Central Otago their home, or they look to new horizons. When the 3-year commitment with the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment came to an end in July 2024, Council and Central Lakes Trust agreed to fund the programme for a further 2 years to embed inclusivity into existing employment and placemaking processes. This programme has never been intended forever, but these extra 2 years have gifted us an opportunity to consolidate existing relationships and networks and ensure self-sustaining initiatives are strong and healthy once there is no paid position to lead the way. Slide 5, please. Through a range of newcomer focus groups, welcoming communities have walked alongside and led the way in connecting education providers, social services, businesses, clubs, community collectives, and council services. These connections have led to a range of valuable initiatives, including perfect volunteer matches, immigration support, multicultural sports events and gatherings, cultural festivals, workplace English and driving lessons, and increased visibility of our growing diversity so that our newcomers see themselves reflected in the media and open spaces. Slide 6, please. It's important to note that the majority of our newcomers are domestic migrants who also experience a settlement process. Many are retirees or work remotely with no children enrolled at school or work
workplaces that provide social opportunities. Creating friendships can be a struggle. Slide 7. Volunteer groups, like the Newcomers Networks, are at the heart of looking after this cohort of migrants. But volunteers come and go, and it is the welcoming community role which has ensured continuity throughout the ebbs and flows of volunteer input. I'd like now to draw attention to 3 initiatives that are currently on the go, which highlight the programme's partnerships and the ensuing impact. Slide 8, please. This year, Business Mentors, Business South and Welcoming Communities are offering newcomer mentorship. One successful recipient is Justina, who moved to Central Otago 7 months ago from Eswatini in Southern Africa, where she had her own business, catering for events, conducting culinary training workshops. With a Mozambican father, she brings a diverse range of cultural cuisines, and she has a dream of adapting her offerings to suit Central Otago, while staying true to her roots. Recently, she was in tears, doubting that her dream would ever become a reality, not knowing where to start, who to connect with, or how to navigate the business landscape in New Zealand. When she discovered that her application for a business mentor was successful, she wept again, this time tears of joy. Justina told me that her daughters have the same entrepreneurial flair, and this lucky break will be reflected in the next generation as they witness the opportunities that New Zealand can offer them. Slide 9, please. Next, I want to circle back to Golden View and Ripponborough and shine a light on a young woman called Maria at the centre of this photo. And actually all the women in there either work or have worked at some point at Golden View and Ripponborough. So as a child, Maria nearly drowned in the river near her village in India. And although she now lives a stone's throw from the Cromwell Pool, she had never set foot inside the premises until the first day of the Women's Wednesdays programme earlier this year. It was truly remarkable to witness Maria progress from an absolute beginner to swimming the whole length of a 25-metre pool in the final session. Next slide, please. Welcoming Communities joined forces with Sport Central, Te Whatu Ora and the Cromwell Pool team to pilot an all-women swim programme. Although water safety was the initial motivation, it was the sense of camaraderie that made it a true triumph. I'd like to share with you a video taken early on in the pilot, which will help you sense the genuine team spirit. It's in the next slide. As Ben alluded to earlier, the pilot was such a success that we're teaming up again to run a 10-week programme this spring. And we're going to trial a water safety evening for families in Alexandra this November. Many of the women said that they signed up because they were too afraid to take their children swimming in the summertime. And that is such a huge part of our Kiwi culture. When we consider the startling Water Safety New Zealand 2024 statistics that indicate those who identify as other ethnicities are 7.5 times more likely to drown than those who are New Zealand born, Maria's story is one that we hope to replicate over and over again. Final slide. There should be one more. Doesn't matter if it's not, doesn't come up. And finally, another imminent initiative is a video to welcome. Yeah, that's it. And finally, another imminent initiative is a video to welcome seasonal workers to Central Otago this summer, being led by a dynamic teacher called Sydney at Clyde Primary School. I want you to keep an eye out for it, and when you come across it, please share it so that seasonal workers around the world can see that we genuinely appreciate them. And I hope this is going to work, but if it does, this is the perfect segue into sharing the 2024 Welcoming Week video with the message, "Welcome to Central Otago, we're glad you're here." I think that's a YouTube clip. Yeah.
It's a welcome to you. It's your time. We're so glad you're here.
Children whose natural lifestyles in the foreign the most luggage. From there, take the many out. Porque si quieres hablar de todo por la subida.
For your time and thank you for your attendance. Thank you so much. Any questions for Heather?
Yeah, just one. So we've got FY 26 is the last year of the funding at this stage. Have we done anything in the long-term plan going forward past that, or what have we got a plan?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. We're working on that.
We'll be back to see you later this week.
Well, not me.
Must be in here.
Well done.
Yeah. The video is great, and I know the kids were so excited to be a part of it. Yeah. Congratulations. Very cool. Right. Recommendation that the report be received. Can I have somebody move? Thank you, Sally. And second, thank you, Sarah. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Welcome, Julie. It's a long way, Jeremy. It's quite a long way, and you're going to have to shout. So hopefully people online can hear us.
So I will take the report as read and read through this around the Ranford and figure out oil product advisory and remember service that options that we can provide during that period. So the team has been working through looking at the different options. Initially, we had been of the view that given this was an advisory that nothing had changed with the water supply, that those residents who felt the need with oil in water filtering and they would use that. We had a bit of feedback around the expectation of water tankers to be provided within the county. Obviously, businesses in the moment which have a hospital are more affected than the so we started looking at options for how we could provide an interim solution for them that would work until the project to upgrade and all supplies is completed in December. Now, obviously, we do it with two different supplies, like within one contract. There are no businesses in Peniwawa, so that focus has been around Ranfurly, where the businesses involved needs it. Initially, we've got two different water tankers that are owned by council that we decided we would put at the two schools that are in Ranfurly for kids to use during the day, because we recognised it would be difficult for schools to fill the kids to drink during the day. Then what happened was people going on to school grounds to use those tankers, which was issues in the school. So we then started looking at the costs of providing the tankers for a prolonged period of time, plus putting in some wind use equipment on the kitchen properties where there's food premises or the hospital. The rules around things like the hospital, it's not just putting a point of use device on the building, it's actually got to be constantly monitored, which means it's not, we get messages around these things being nice and simple and low cost to do, but it's actually up over $20,000 to put that device to the hospital. So while we're kind of working through those options, one of the operations team became aware that South District Council had had a temporary unit on one of their supplies. They are currently in the process of upgrading their supply, and their temporary unit is going to become available on the 5th of August. So we've done some pricing and bringing it and putting it on Ranfurly, and the team believe they can get that done within a month. So they expect it to be operational around in August. And the cost to do that is not actually an awful lot more than what it cost us to put in UVs plus tankers, but it would basically take that water advisory up from the supply. If we've got that temporary unit on Ranfurly, we can then direct our contractor to focus on getting the Peniwawa plant implemented first. So that they're building both at the same time, but there will be installing so that still getting right first, so like government building the same December. So our advice to council is that we proceed with the installation of the continuing area. We can install the temporary containment within the project budget because the cost of the rates is actually less than the budget we have provided for. The cost of the tankers is coming out of that operation budget, so I think maybe those numbers that I got as a project, so that we can advise in spot rushing. Questions?
So you're confident that the alternative that you've put up will be sufficient for the period of time pending?
And we what our one is they want us to demonstrate that we have a variant in place, or else we can impossible. And so this provides that barrier. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't add resilience to the park. So if we were to get a weather event that had high turbidity, we would still have a short duration water notice. The new plants that we're building have the filtration water, so that they would be able to filter out a lot of that turbidity for the future, so that the range that we can operate the plant in is much wider than what it currently is, and what it would be able to extend the barriers in place.
Our tank is currently filling in Alexandra and then trucking to
they're ready to go in Nice there. Basically starting to find new supply. Otherwise, the big tank is
Sorry.
Yes, but if we've got that point, the temporary solution in Ranfurly and then the Peniwawa system, as well.
Yeah, reduces that cost. Just when we worked through it, it just seemed to be that the trade-off between cost versus level of service was quite you get a big lift in the service and quite a minimum cost implication. It was a big the service implication of having that temporary relocation. It's not helpful.
I think when you factor in the alarm fatigue, the economic impacts and the visitor image into that, for the sake of this 75,000, yes, we know that there's no difference in the water that's coming out of people's taps, but I think that's certainly preferable to having a single publicly accessible tap, which just seems sort of really third world in the Manito. Any other questions?
I have a question, but it's not quite related to this, so I'm not sure when I can ask Julie. It's related, it's related to water. Are you happy for me to ask it? Okay. Just in light of what we've heard from the public forum this morning, what is council doing to assist or front foot some of the questions coming out about private water supplies?
That's us now. So we you will recall that you all got an email from Alan Cravenell many months ago, and in that email he pointed out to you that we free supplies. I don't think it's not very long, and also pointed out to you that we are legally required to have the water services assessments done by the 1st of July 2026. And you have an obligation to ensure we're resourced to deliver that. So we are starting work on the project plan to deliver that piece of work. And we're going to give a presentation on the 12th of August around what those water services assessments entail. So basically, and this is very high level, in the legislation that actually went through the House last night, actually adjusted them again slightly. So councils are required to undertake water services assessments on every community within the district, not just the ones that council requires, but the ones that they don't supply, and even the properties that are not articulated. So we have to identify basically where every property gets its water from. So we're even just doing that's a huge undertaking. And once we've then identified them into groups of communities, we have to then do an assessment on whether they meet the current requirements, whether they're going to struggle to meet the requirements, whether they're going to have any impacts from climate change in the future with the supply of water, and you know that heavy rainfall events does, and then what their capacity to deal with growth is, and then what would happen if they were unable to deliver what was required. And so it's going to be a huge piece of work. We're still working through how we're going to do it, how we're going to prioritize it. But just noticing, just having a look up to ROS website, there's 33 water supplies registered in Central Otago, and of council funds. What they've said is there were 2,000 supplies across the country that were on the Ministry of Health website that they are transitioning across to their system, and so they're not on their system yet. So we're reaching out to Tamara Arroway and asking them for what those supplies are. And I think that there's probably a wide misunderstanding around what compliance looks like. So the government is changing the requirements on who has to comply. So they've said that anything, and I'm not sure whether it's 30 people, 30 connections, less than that, will be exempted from meeting the requirements. But anything that's never supplied over that amount will have to. And they basically have to meet the same requirements we have to. And so if you look at patio law, we have to have chlorination, we have to have protozoa barrier, we have to have monitoring in place and sampling and recording, we have a full safety plan, have source or a risk management plan, have to update those annually. So there's a lot of requirements that I just don't think many private suppliers are relevant. I can't imagine you're going to be necessarily wholly helpful in providing us information. Yes, so it's going to be quite challenging.
And Julie, just quickly,
the cost for that with the private schemes, are they required to co-fund some of that work?
No, and so, what's interesting is that we will be funding that as a council from our water budgets, and it's the properties that are not connected to the council supplies that are going to generate that piece of work. So, I think that the biggest piece of that is the information going forward in the planning space. So when developments are getting done, we don't make mistakes. We've got this perfectly adequate water supply, that information will be available to be considered. We have to make the information publicly available on the website. We have to review it every 3 years. And it does transfer to the CCOs, like in the CCOs as well.
So you're saying that we're being asked to collect data on our water users for the government and it's not come with a check, Julie?
No, it hasn't come with a check. It's going to take all the right reasons to do it. And I think the more the communities are cooperative and providing that information, the more work it's going to create for us.
So one of the key things that's come out of that is there's a whole lot of people with their own schemes, privately operated, that probably rightfully think they've got a fantastic water supply.
Yeah.
The reality is they most likely haven't.
Yeah.
And someone's going to be telling them that very soon.
Yeah, and with mess they've got, you have to chlorinate even if you've got a water. Even if you've got a dead bore, you've got to chlorinate that, just talk to brush to you, because there's things can get into the network from other sources. So that's why you're going to have residual chlorination. You've got to have a point where you need them and network to make sure it's meeting the levels required. We had to monitor for all things like aluminium, nitrates, level.
So who's going to actually be educating the private water scheme owners that this is the case?
Look, it's not our job to do that, or we're doing this collecting data, and we the water regulators' job to do that.
And Julie, have we got clarity around what happens if the private scheme no longer wants to be a private scheme?
So if we basically say we can't do this, this is too hard, in that fallback is that organisation who provides water services in that area, either be the council or the CCO. So if you've got an in-house business unit or maybe the council, I mean, that is something that we have to make sure we articulate on that.
I know it's a particular case in the council, one of our flanks, but picking up a private scheme. But before they do that, they're ensuring that the shareholders of that private scheme have to stump up with enough capital, and then they'll be on a targeted rate for a period of time when it's incorporated into the district scheme to fund the ongoing costs, because as most cases have found, it's been underinvested, and to bring it up to the requirement that's been imposed is significant.
Yeah, look, our experience, you may recall their report that came out on Rivervale, we usually we really underestimated. You know, there was a lot of criticism at the time, but we had put a whole lot of that into the costs of upgrading and supplying what we found is we've grossly underestimated that.
That was even having some government money.
We didn't have any government. That money to that they had government money to build it in the first place.
Right. Recommendations are that we receive the report and accept the level of significance, approve the installation of a temporary protozoal barrier line from Southern District on the Ranfurly water treatment plant, and agree that the installation of the temporary barrier and provision of tankered drinking water while the treatment upgrades are completed, be funded as a mix of operational and capital costs for the Ranfurly and Whakareroa water treatment plant upgrades. Martin, is that you have to move? Thank you. Nigel Secretary second. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Julie? I just saw it in the middle there. It was hiding. That's all right. You put up
Carry on.
Item 25.15.5, admission of excess water charges. Oh, welcome. And on.
Well, we've just got to sit here because we've got the next 4 items.
You're going to be here a while, yes, get up there.
I will, as soon as I get to take the report as read. There's not a lot I can add to this. The applicant was not, didn't want to pay the 50% that we normally charge them in access water. So I brought it to council for a consider as to whether you wish to omit the full amount or apply the policy. Have any questions?
Questions on this? Sure.
Just, it's in relation to a paragraph on page 59. And I do actually miss it with these people. But it says here, while at the same time ensuring that consumers retain responsibility for the maintenance of their private reticulation. How does a consumer maintain their pipes or their pipes for half a metre underground?
That's a really good question. I guess what we would be looking at is what's happening on top. So for argument's sake, if it's a relative dry space and it's got a patch, then perhaps you know that there's probably a leak there. Checking your water meters, and I know that that's difficult for some people to do, but you would see the water meter ticking over a lot faster than you would have expected compared to 6 months ago, that type of thing. But there is a responsibility when we as a council need to maintain our pipes, and so there's a responsibility beyond the meter for the property owners, ratepayers to at least be understanding what's going on in their space, and leaking taps, you should be looking at those types of issues.
I do wonder how many people in our community actually go and check the utility and actually read, or whether they've even thought that that is their responsibility to do so. When I just got back from holiday a week and a half ago to my God, I didn't know there was a leak. And again, the folks, but it's the heart of me to understand. It's the second one I've had on my properties. One in the back, one in the front. You only find these things out when you get the bubbling water.
Yeah, when you give the account.
But yeah, or you get the account, and of course the accounts only, it's only read twice a year at the stage. So it's really harsh. But whether it's consumer, we really don't have the ability to know what's going on with the posts under the ground.
Yeah, so I understand what people are saying. I guess my response to that would be, this is a policy that was set by council, it's been in place for a long time. We have discussed this at the long-term plan process, and I think prior to that, about increases in volumetric charging, that was going to have a bigger impact. So understanding what you're asking, I guess the answer now is for the council to have a conversation around that. This is the policy that sets at 50% permission. That's really involved. We as officers would rely on if it was something that we wanted to do differently, hence why I put the paper in front of you. That would be a decision of council to, I guess, deviate from this current policy. But I do take the point to the how do people kind of understand these things and see these things happen.
Well, do you know if the property was occupied or unoccupied at the time? Because 7,848 units is an extraordinary amount of water.
Yeah.
But also recognise we have a lot of gravel soils and it's possibly there was nothing to see.
I think that part was what the situation was, that it was pretty gravelly and the water just was absorbed downwards rather than soaking the ground above. I believe the property was occupied at the time.
Effectively,
I'm going,
sorry, I
no,
was going to say effectively the ground has to be unsaturated before the water actually comes up, so it's going to be done for a long time.
Well, probably since last week's meeting. Sorry, Neil.
I'm going to shoot the messenger, so don't take it personally, Paul, because the policy's been developed with the best of advice from some very good staff. What we know for sure now, it's been reinforced, that it ain't perfect. And you're right, council has pipes, they leak. The difference is council doesn't pay for that water and doesn't know it's leaked and for how long until after they fix it. Usually when it's come to the surface of the road and the seal's broken and all that sort of stuff. I find it hard with this one and the previous one we did, because difficult in a public meeting is ask the full story about this and where it is, and to have some insight into saying what might have been a situation that could provide the extenuating circumstance for us to depart from policy. There's nothing in your report that gives us that, which I understand why, but it is unfortunate, I think. So I think these things should actually come in a session when we can actually know the full facts about it all, so we can make a truly informed decision. You've got the facts, represented them here, which is the best you can do, and you're reflecting our policy. I think the big issue says our policy still does not give us enough scope to be able to realistically consider on a case-by-case basis when saying, I have no way of knowing. You know, and that's the reality. And if I was to look at my place and go, well, actually, not only is my one half a metre, it's probably actually the council main through my property is probably 5 metres deep. And you're never going to know when that's leaking, because it's going to straighten the gravel and end up in the lake. So I just think that unfortunately we've got a situation where our policy is just not helping one little bit. And that's not your fault.
No, I take no offence to you shooting the messenger, that's fine. What I will say is that there is a automatic 50% emission that's applied. And then on top of that, there is a hardship application. And this was not applied under a hardship application. This was basically, I do not want to pay this because I do not think it's fair. So I understand what you're saying. We have a policy that we have to apply. If we were going to apply the financial hardship policy, this paper would be completely different and would be similar to the paper that I put to the council 6 months ago. That person and who did apply under the financial hardship policy for council to. We would go through a process of gathering financial information of the applicant to see how much of a hardship this is. We haven't done that because they haven't applied for that.
I think picking it up, hardship's one thing, and I look at it and go, well, what's hard for me and what's hard for you is going to be different, and maybe because I'm sitting in a flash house doesn't mean it's any less easy in terms of the financial cost. And what's even worse, and why I think we need to do some serious work, is that if this comes to us this time next year, this bill is going to be 2.66 times higher. So it's going to be $12,500. And you go, well,
That triggers hardship.
well, how you define hardship? It's, you know, especially when someone's living in a $1.5 million house.
So you look at something.
Yeah.
You don't know nothing. You don't know the situation of these people. We know nobody else. But no, I've been like, sure, I've been in a similar situation. My place, I only found out like in a week. Then the bill came, right? I fixed that straight away. And mine was not $4,500 worth. It was about $600 worth, and I got $300 of that back. I had no trouble paying the other $300. It's $4,500. It's a chunk of change.
And I think we will go some way towards mitigating this into the future, recognising that they'll go up because we're going to be reading the meters more frequently. So it won't be 6 months between a meter read that you've potentially been losing 1,000 cubic metres a day. I think for today, we have a policy that we have applied in the past to the same circumstances. If we are to decline the application to remit 100%, that doesn't prevent the person from coming forward with a hardship application if they felt that that was the avenue they wanted to take. But for everybody, the Māoris and everybody else who has been subject to this policy in the past, however long we've had it, recognising that most of our policies aren't perfect. There are circumstances that arise that couldn't have been planned for in any policy.
I'd agree if I had all the information that I think I need to make a call, and I need to know where it is. me to have the complete picture, otherwise I haven't got enough information to say, will it make a difference? I don't know. I don't know.
There it is. Is it, if you say, well, it's on Bantry Street compared to it's on Bel-Air, are you then making an assumption based on who you think is living in those properties?
No, making an assumption on the type of property and saying, how could they have not possibly known? You know, 7,000 cubic metres is a big chunk of water. You know, and you look at it and go, well, if there's some way that they could have known, you know, that might be part that could just help me make that decision. I find that was missing for me.
Okay.
No, actually, it's been answered.
I just wondered if we could actually, ask for the new council to have another look at that particular policy. Noted.
And the potential for smart meters down the track sometime, because then you would pick up those leaks a lot quicker.
Yeah, such an advocate for smart meters.
Oh, I know,
Well,
it's brilliant.
but she's right, she's still 100% correct.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't have this problem, because actually someone from the team would ring you and say, hey, did you know you've got a leak at your property?
Smart enough, my phone would tell me this.
Yeah.
Neil, you used more twice as much water as you did yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
grandkids are home.
I think that's, you know, something that the next council should consider as smart meters.
If I may mention, so absolutely, I mean, we actually are now replacing a rollout of the meter program as you're updating our current meters with new meters, not the smart meters. There's still a ways to go in the technology for the smart meters in our geography. But all I would say is homeowners have a direct responsibility, because we have to be cautious because of the precedent that could be established that the cost to maintain the property sits with the homeowner. We don't want to abrogate them of that responsibility, because then there's a liability, cost liability that flows on to council and other ratepayers who maintain their properties.
I get in contradiction to what Neil was saying. I agree. You need a policy. If you have a policy that then depends on individual review, then you haven't got a policy at all. And the fact is, acts of God happen, and that's just the fact. So, and you can't insure against what happens by chance.
Which is why I was very carefully said I haven't got enough information to make an informed decision. Didn't say the policy was. Yeah.
I'm happy to move.
Ian, second. All those in favour? Aye. Against?
Right.
Can I get a show of hands?
Only on the basis of what I said, I'm against it. Yeah.
Can I get a show of hands for aye, because I couldn't hear what people said. Aye. Carried. Do you guys want to note report against?
Oh, in my case, only for the reasons that I expressed.
But I actually agree with some reasons.
Can you note that this policy may need to come back for review in the new training to see whether it's going to work for us, but what is potentially going to be 2 years? We should just put it as consideration. Thank you. Amendment to rates commission policy to allow for remission of water rates in certain circumstances. Do you just want to cover that off, Paul, as to what it is for those people here, and then we may not put a discussion on that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam. This suggested amendment has come about due to the advisory boil water notice. The boil water advisory that's been put in place for landfill impact. We were asked to investigate whether or not a remission could be applied for water rates in the event of either A, as supply water to be the water quality is not as good. So it was pretty short notice, and you may not cover off everything that is required, but it's effectively to allow the council to give remission for rates in those events if it's so chooses. I would answer any questions if there are.
I asked Paul to bring this paper because I think that there probably is a discussion to be had if we have a community that is being asked or advised to boil their water for a period of 6 months as to whether they would still be required to pay the same amount to somebody who's just drinking their water enjoyably from the tap. However, we are approaching very close to the election period, and I think that this is probably a discussion that A, needs to come back to the new council, but B, I don't think that there is any undue hardship in that conversation being delayed by a period of a couple of months. Any questions or comments on that?
I'd agree, because there's a lot of thoughts to go around that as well, about saying, well, if you've got a boiler, you're going to use less, so the volumetric charge is going to be less, still going to use the water. And I think until you actually see the true impact of it in place as well, it's going to be difficult to say, is there a case? On face value, you'd say, well, you use less, you pay less.
Especially if we can provide a temporary solution.
Yeah. But I think you're right, it's something to it's been raised, and the good thing about this is it'll get some people out there in the community thinking about it as well and say, oh, I think for this reason you should do it. And there might be a more compelling reason than what I've seen so far.
You need a moved and seconded to allow that.
Just I think it's something to leave on the table to be considered by the new council.
So to leave on the table to be considered by the new council. I'm happy to move it. Tracy's happy to second that. All those in favour? No. Against? Carried. Thank you very much for quickly putting that paper together and getting it up before us today, Paul. And I'm sorry for the additional pressure on you. It's already a very busy time, but I think it's important that we do have that discussion around changing expectations, community expectations, and also recognising that we have other communities that may well face the same sort of challenges in coming months. So we will have that come back to us. Thank you. Financial dashboard, 31 May 2025, on page 67, please.
This one we like talking about. I'm going to take the report as read. This report is developed from effectively a set of reports that we put together for the executive leadership team to help inform them on where they're at financially. We started out later last year, calendar year, and have gradually been able to move this thing from a quarterly report through to monthly now. So this is a little bit more detail for your ELT. This goes to the monthly, and the discussions around it are quite good and quite enlightening. We also put this in front of the Audit Risk Committee, and the chair of the Audit Risk Committee has suggested that we put this in front of the council to gauge council's council's view on what we're presenting, but also, is it useful to the council? And if so, we can start putting this in front of the council, maybe on a quarterly basis or tied in with our financial reporting timetables. So we have, the other thing we want to do, there's some stuff that, and I appreciate that I know we're going to get a little bit of a telling off, well, not telling off, but a bit of commentary around the colour coding. We're open to changing it. It still looks very busy, but we can change the parameters around the percentages that we're looking at. So that would reduce the colours for the variance analysis. So we can do that. The other thing that we need to be aware of, that this report is prepared effectively at the raw cost centre level. We do not allocate any overheads in this report, whereas the next report that you'll look at from Donna will have all the overheads allocated. And the reason we don't allocate the overheads in this report is because we're trying to get discussion around the raw numbers before they disappear through the overhead allocation process. So for argument's sake, business support is shown as business support. Otherwise, it would show zero because all of this cost will be allocated. And that doesn't help anybody when they're trying to manage budgets or explain variances because it just effectively disappears. So that's a difference that you will note between this file and the next paper that you will be seeing. The other thing we want to add to it as we move into the new financial year is another couple of graphs around the balanced budget benchmark. So we're hoping to see if we can get that at least quarterly, but if we can get the information coming through, then it will be more regular than that. We're also looking at the essential services benchmark, which is effectively the capital spending. So those are the things we're looking at adding, and happy to take any questions, any suggestions you might have. You might turn around and say, no, we don't want to see this. We may turn and say, yeah, we're really keen to have this and we'd like to see these tweaks. So I'll leave it open to the now for discussion.
Questions?
I think it's really useful, really good. And it's good that it does have the raw information and then report, because otherwise you don't see the cost of some of these things, which is great. I just wonder how you might plan to integrate it with the next report we're going to consider, which is the full version, and whether you do it as one somehow to take us on, take the members on the journey about from here to here. And the other bit that highlighted to me when I was looking through both the documents, saying, well, we talk about the variances, what they are. We often don't talk a lot about what's going to be done about them. Yeah. And I think to me that's the bit that. So what you did by doing this, and I went bang, read the variance, and I thought, okay, that's good. What's next? What's going to be done? You know, what's David going to do to fix that problem he's got with the budget for? Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that's the bit that I've worked out saying, oh, once that's missing, it's not consistently there.
Yeah. And I think that they can be integrated as one report. I think that for me to sit here and talk about this, then I'll come talk about that. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Rather than
the object of these reports are, I'm going to call that. The objects of these reports are to spark discussion initially amongst the ELT, and so they can hold each other accountable as to why the whys, what you're after is the whys, and then what are we going to do to fix it. So that's the purpose of these reports when we put them in front of the ELT, and it has sparked a little bit of a conversation around capital completion studies. Very important. If you look at them, you see that we haven't completed a lot of capital, given that the I guess the problem Paul is kind of held our capital completion rates up. If you took that out, they wouldn't be good. It also talks about you reading versus your actuals, your forecast versus your actually where we are in the headspace. So all of that isn't really covered off in the actual financials that Don's going to present. So I think it's definitely a thing that we will look at amalgamating them so that Don can do all the presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Darcy, did you have something in the item?
Yeah, just obviously on carry forward and in relation to the dashboard, will that help to reflect carry forwards going into the future? How's that going to look?
I've got a plan for carry forwards because, and the reason and this is preliminary thinking at the moment, carry forwards aren't reflected in your budgets. So the carry forward occurs from a previous budget. When we report against the year one of the LTP, when we do our carry forwards, we're actually only reporting against what was in the LTP. So there will be significant budget variance because you'll reforecast stuff, you carry forward stuff. I haven't really, I've talked to one or two of the ELT around about this, but I think that we should be looking at when we do our budgets, if we aren't going to complete projects, they need to be rebudgeted So we may already have the revenue stream for it, and that's okay, we can account for that. But if you're going to bring forward a whole bunch of spend that you didn't do last year into this year, to avoid the budget variance of saying, you know, this was a carry forward from last year, we would bring it in as a budget, part of the budget process for an annual plan or long-term plan. So the team needs to start thinking ahead of time as to whether they're going to complete projects or whether there's going to be carried forwards. When I say carried forwards, rebudgeting and including in the capital program. Because what we could end up is, for argument's sake, we complete 70% of our capital, that might mean a $20 million carry forward into the new year on a $75 million program of work next year, which will push it up to $95 million, which then means, are we going to be able to complete $95 million, or are we going to have some that's going to push into the following year, which is a $44 million program? And if we continue kind of the way we go, we might be pushing $40 million into the year three, or year three of the LTP, which then takes that back up to 80 million. So I think we need to be smarter in what we program and the period of time that we program that over. I think there's a habit of you'll budget it in 1 year, and then you know it's going to be a 3-year program of work. Well, what we should actually do is take a sensible view and say, this is a program of work that will take 3 years. Year 1 is going to be design, resource consent applications, all of that stuff. Year 2, much like the community hall in Beaumont. Year 2 would be most of the construction. Year 3 would be finalising of the construction and the handing over in turnkey and what runs. I think we need to change our view from looking at it year to date to like today. And I think that helps in terms of how you budget things. So I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear, so thank you.
Thanks, Karen. You sent out an interesting email a wee while ago showing the breakdown of where money was spent within CADC, and with all the talk of core spending and non-core spending, I'm wondering if there'd be room in the dashboard for some kind of breakdown of where money goes by department or the
It is available in financial report and also contained up through the dashboard. Let's back to the funding impact statement for the group this year that we've gone through the long-term plan. LTP we provide we provide the performance measures against eroding, waste, stormwater, wastewater, community facilities, parks, some cemeteries, and our governance as well. So this is available here for significant.
Was that the information that
That was the template you sent me, which was really good.
So that's the single report, core services versus. So when we talked about core services, it was waters, roading, solid waste, I think, were the five. Not only the 3, with the 5. So there are 3. So we do have that separate in that dashboard, but we could look at the type of template that we provided for you and me and see how that might fit into that.
Yeah, because that was useful.
It was very helpful. Yeah. And thanks for any of those that haven't seen it. It indicated that last year when we had an 18.3% rates rise, it was made up of 92% core spending.
But this is a contrast to this one.
47% core spending, and then we obviously already know the impact that come on Memorial Hall will have on our rates for this year.
But that's core spending.
But it is according to the governor.
Recreation.
Yep.
Recreation. One of the things that comes up frequently is personnel costs for what is quite a big employer in town. Peter, do you want to talk through, please, that personnel cost forecast versus actual on page 68?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So you'll recall, because this is reporting against the annual plan 24-25. So you'll recall going back into that first quarter of 2024 when we were working through the annual plan, that projected rates were probably in the order of about 21-22%, maybe actually higher. And so council rightly said to staff, go away and have to think about how we can reduce the costs. And in that process, we probably stripped out, and the team went down the end of the table, they'll be able to confirm with me or not, but probably about $1.5 million in cost that was layered into the annual plan. And the one thing about staff, so what we did with staff was we had some vacant positions and we had some positions that are hard to recruit. So we took some of the, we actually took a 5% reduction in the staff budget. And that 5% probably in sort of nominal terms, I'd say is that this is 5% of the staff budget. So I don't know, $700,000 or thereabouts. And we said, we'll take that on as risk. We'll remove that from the budget, and because we know that there's some positions that we're struggling to recruit for and so on and so on, and we always have vacancies. So we'll see if we can carry that as risk into the business as a mechanism to help reduce that cost. Interesting enough, and Fiona's in this room, so I can say this, we were able to find Fiona. And that's one of the hardest positions that we've been out to recruit for. But we had actually stripped that out of the budget. And we'd be coming our nose off to spite our face if we didn't recruit Fiona when that opportunity came up. So what that's showing is actually that risk did manifest itself. The cost of hiring, I can continue now, it is very topical. When staff leave and you replace staff, you will pay more for the next staff member that's coming on. You can argue to the cows come home that it shouldn't be the case, but that's the reality of the labour market that we are operating in. We're having to recruit staff from all over the country to come to CODC. That comes at a cost. And we pay for a local government rate, which is not the government rate. So we compare ourselves across local government. We don't compare ourselves across central government because that'd be another 7 to 10% higher than the local government. And so we have to be pretty competitive. So what this is saying is that we thought we could find 5% saving in staffing costs with the vacancies and that sort of stuff. But actually we've done pretty well in the recruitment of some of those tier holders. And so what that is saying is actually we're be closer to what we would have forecast right back at the beginning of that annual planning process when it came to personnel.
So we're going to be close to what we forecast. Is that graph actually right then on page?
The graph, well, that graph is right as at May. End of May. So it's probably needs to be updated for where we are now, 1 month end of year.
Well, just the other thing I will add to what the Chief Commissioner has just said is that there's an issue in budgeting. And when I say it's an issue, it's a budget process that we go through in terms of capitalisation of staff costs. We are allowed to capitalise staff costs to capital projects that they are directly working on. And then there's an overhead that follows that cost, and you're allowed to capitalise costs that are directly associated with that particular person. If you look at that staff cost chart,
it hasn't been done.
We estimated that we would have capitalised 2.9 million. We are capitalising at this point in time 2.19 million. And I think that reflects on the capital program work as well, which means, and that's what's so important to push the capital program, because there's a whole bunch of costs that would normally follow that program. But because it's lower year to date, that means that we haven't been able to capitalise as much of the start time as we budgeted for. So that's another little quirk of you know, we budget what we budget, knowing what we know at the time. But there are circumstances that, and you know, you can ask, if Julie was here, she would be talking about situations around changing the changing landscape, you know, the rules and regulations we finalised so that building capital projects, you don't want to start those until you've got basically know what the playing field looks like, because you go and spend a lot of money and the government changes the playing field. You've then got that money, some of it may not be, would have been spent and you will not do it because you've got to change direction. So there's all those types of things that we have to deal with as well. So it's just adding to, I guess, the complexity around personnel costs and the legal where they go.
I think that's important to note that we've had this discussion at this table and with Peter and the executive leadership teams that capital costs will be under the microscope going forward. Our completion rate needs to be higher when we tell people that we are going to complete projects and then gather rates based on that. We will be completing those projects into the future, or we will be deferring them to other years and not collecting the rates in that year.
Good luck.
Good luck, I know.
Sorry,
The changing landscape is a huge part of the problem.
Because
And it does not make sense. If we had been forging ahead with our Alexandra wastewater treatment plant moving to the top of a hill and then pumping the proverbial literally uphill for no apparent benefit, because that has now changed, the legislation. You don't want to be that far ahead of the curve that you are wasting public money.
That challenge is not something just unique to councils. The biggest corporates have the same issue with their capital budgets getting stuff done. Because there's so many factors that impact on your timing.
The other thing I just wanted to note before we cover off this report is that if you move to page 73, and I think we've talked about this before, because it does come up frequently, the unfortunate label of CEO that covers more than just the CEO, and I just want to clarify that Peter does not make $879,000.
No, it's more like 1.2, isn't it?
Actually, I mean, that's been addressed in this, the LTP, because I probably had quite a number of salaries tied to the CE's office. So there's actually half a dozen plus people in there.
That's not just what we got.
Yeah, I'm correct, we have adjusted the LTP to pull those out into their own overhead area. But because we were reporting against the annual plan, which wasn't, it would have one more month of that, and then we'll move into the new regime, I guess, of overhead cost centres, and that will not show you CEO $800,000 personnel costs.
And maybe it might be helpful to make the point around overheads as well. I mean, the overheads in business nowadays are significant. If there is a naivety out there that we can reduce it. When you're a public facing organisation like ours, the level of security you need for cyber security these days is going up time and time again because of the way that the perpetrators out there are accessing systems. So the cost that we spend on information communications and technology systems and protecting them, your laptops, your iPads, data communication, so on and so on, there is no shying away from that cost. Managing privacy, managing data, securing our systems, the digitalisation process we're working through to digitise all our data and hold it off-site, not on-site. So it's accessible in times of emergency, it's somewhere else, you can pull it down. There is a significant cost to that, and that's part of the reason why our overheads in councils are quite high, is because you pick on that, you take on that additional responsibility to manage that risk, and there is no getting away from it.
So we're happy that this is the sort of report dashboard that we'd like to see coming back.
Pending colour alterations. No, I think that it's really helpful. Really helps.
I'm not a graphic designer, so it's an excuse of that.
Sure.
I mean, it's quite hard to read it because it's quite small and got a slide. It's really, a paper copy like that.
Yeah. We could send out A3 copies.
Yeah, that would be really good to have.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, recommendation is that the report be received. Cheryl's happy to move this. Sarah's happy to second. So those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, and wait, there's more. Moving to page 80, please, for the financial report for the period ending 31 now.
Thank you. So technically is being read. This report is discussed the financial statement 31 May 2025. So for the 11 months of the financial year, the council has an overall unfavourable variance of 2.7 million. Though we do have an overall surplus of 8.5 million. Income has an unfavourable variance of 4.2 million. We do have use of fees and other rates, profit on sale of assets and reserves contributions being required in budget. However, our development contributions, grants and subsidies, and land sales are running behind budget by this period. And many of these are outside of our control. And down to developers and also funders coming to the party as well. So extreme tax effect variance of 1.5 million. There is unfavorable variances in staff, reduce and recycling, electricity and fuel projects and interest expense. This has been offset by favourable variances of professional fees, cost of sales, contracts, repairs and maintenance and other costs. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $14.7 million, was 67% of the total revised budget. So projects are still at different stages through investigation to design, tenders and construction. And it's already discussed, the political capital project completion continues to be a concern, as it impacts budgeting, funding, and environment. The internal loans has a forecasted total balance of $4.09 million for the financial year, with our external debt having a total of $15 million, and this is where we have finished for this financial year, compared to an $88.5 million forecasted end of year balance. So it's about $38 million unaudited external debt. At the end of 30 June 2024, the council had an audited closing reserve balance of $12.15 million, and it was forecasted to finish this year at $15.7 million. Due to the timing where we are preparing, we are able to give you an updated reserve estimate for the end of the financial year, and it will be available in a draft report to both council and audit for the rest of September.
Questions? Yes. Just in relation to the external loans, and I note from the report that we've now got a nil balance. Because we've moved to the district-wide funding model, is that still a possibility for external loans like that to come through, or what's your thoughts on that? Yes. So the external loans, now they're all paid, given that we're now district-wide funding model, is there any likelihood that we are going to have external loans or the possibility of those coming through?
So those are the community loans. I believe we would have to actually create a policy for that, as I don't believe there is a policy in place. So anything new coming forward would have to be brought by a community group to the council for consideration, and the like this is policy. So I believe most of those have been in place for a long time, and were under the old, under community boards for their life.
Will that external funding for the DIA, MSD, Better Off funding be uplifted before 30 June?
The likelihood is that it will not be uplifted. We do an accrual at the end of the financial year if there's an expectation that we will receive that funding. And we'll go through that process. I don't believe we will get can do ones really much. But we can also have participation to business rather than, as an independent project, but that's the exception of the 3 tenants. The bedrock funding is only as
And the environmental services, can you talk through that 1.94 million favourable please and what that's sitting in for? Yes.
So, the waste team are trying to organise a project for the, I believe, the organic waste. And working with NFE and securing funding for that. So at this point in time, I don't believe that they've been successful in negotiations. And the grant funding that lies with that will only come once it is approved and the project. So it will likely be in the coming financial year, particularly as it started and the one with the
Other questions?
Just a question for a moment around better off funding and transition funding for free water. So far, with the Southern Water Done Well grouping, that's received an additional 350,000 from the government, has funded the majority of our costs up until May, and the additional cost that will be incurred as we work through that will be drawn out of the respective councils' monies left over in the Better Off Fund and the transition fund that was all associated with the previous government's. That's what DAA is undertaking. There was a deadline, but the fact is, because they gave us all this additional money, councils could use that to pay for the work that we've undergone. And I expect that we'll be drawing off those funds now as we that government funding has run out from the new funding they gave us, and we'll be falling back on better off funding and transition funding.
Well, a couple of these you might not be able to answer, but I just wondered, page 86, when we're talking about roading, 1.2 trades in gold. Why is minor improvements sitting at 816k? So this is under roading. Park renewals, minor improvement.
Okay. Minor improvements. So the minor improvement projects include the Five Generations Precinct and also the South of the Northern Valley Regional projects. So most of it will should still relate to the Little Valley Bridge project, which I believe is the unwaged food. It does seem a bit done, but it's under minor improvement.
Yeah. Maybe just some boards and words around that. And then one of the things that's come up in the past is this idea that council is carrying a surplus across from year to year, which when you add wastewater and stormwater favourable accounts that are sitting as effectively carried forwards into the next year, are you comfortable that that's where the idea that we're carrying a surplus is coming from?
The idea that we're necessarily carrying a surplus might mean that there's other funding streams coming through the revenue which aren't affecting our operational expenditure. So you've got things like land sales, which would be attributed to capital expenditure. I've got contributions that also attribute to capital expenditure as well, rather than operational expenditure. And that sort of links through to the reserves contributions as well. And then within the rates collection, there is also a repayment of the external debt. So that here is also not shown in the operational side. So there's a few things, and I think if we bring in the balance benchmark into the dashboard, we'll actually take out all of those capital revenue streams to be able to give you a clear idea of your actual balance budget is. That's what it's designed to do.
I think that would be really helpful, and I think the dashboard is going to be really helpful for our public as well to understand that. So I think that's probably something that we could be pushing as, that page to read when people are hopping on the agenda. Not everybody's going to have time to read 747 pages, but hopefully they've got time to look at a couple of pages of graphs with the appropriate colour scheme. As the half. Any other questions? No, in that case, someone had to move that the report be received. Thank you, Tracy. Seconded, thank you, Sally. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Appreciated. We're going to move to the letter of support for the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme, which begins on page number 90. Welcome, Mr. Lennons.
Yeah, so this paper is around the letter of support, Ratepayers Assistance Scheme. The purpose of the report is to consider the request from Rewiring thereof, you could letter of support, the recommendations being what we received and accepted, approve the letter of support, and noting the possibility of a future discussion regarding investment in the RAS. Rewiring Aotearoa. So they're a not-for-profit charitable organisation with the purpose of helping households and communities transition to renewable energy, electrification. And they're part of the working group working on the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme. So the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme has been under development for a number of years now, and that's entering its final stages, but put a stop going decision at the end of this year. So it's still being worked on, so it's not 100% going to happen, but it's nearing the final stage. Essentially, the Ratepayers Assistance Scheme is around providing low-cost financing to ratepayers for approved purposes, and those approved purposes fall into three categories. So we've got rates deferment in one of those three categories, and so that's where you can defer your rates to a later date. That might be when the property is sold. You can also look at the second category around development contributions and development levies. That's no development levies development contribution, but they are increasing with the idea that growth pays for growth. So there's a concern around, well, if those costs increase too much, it could actually inhibit some of the development that we need, provide affordable housing, etc., etc. So the idea that these things for development levies, upfront cost of them could be go against the property and could be paid off over a period of 30 years or when the property is sold. And then the third category for this is that it could also fund home improvements that have a public and a private benefit. So what we're talking about there is essentially, home insulation, double glazing, could be solar, could be things like retaining walls to mitigate flood damage and things like that. Preventing against the effects of climate change. So that's really the purpose of what it's trying to achieve. How it does that is it requires a change in legislation, essentially, that will enable this council controlled organisation to be able to have security over the money that it makes ratepayers that will give it a high security and bankable with a mortgage. So with that high security, makes it very low risk investment, and so they can secure finance at a truly low rate, and essentially will be able to offer, financing terms that would be below existing mortgage rates on the market. In the paper, there's a couple of examples around where that we've done overseas. Something that Ratepower have been supportive of as well, with Origin Community. And then the second part of the paper is really talks a little bit more around this CCO, and in terms of there's, being worked on over, metro councils. There's going to be a process that is going to require capital. If it goes to the next stage, it could be an opportunity for councils to invest and provide that capital, and then maybe a return on that. But that's a possibility. I guess that's the main key points that I'd like to make. Happy to answer any questions. I guess I just really note that this is an optional thing for ratepayers if it goes through. So it's really just another tool in the toolbox for them, another option which is worthwhile.
I think to reiterate what Nick said, there is the potential that this council may look to contribute to the capital down the track, but we're not having that discussion today, and it would be a conversation for the next council. Today, we're just looking to say potentially, yes, we are interested in that. I think the big thing, I've been doing a bit of research on the green loans that different banks have, because some people have said, oh, well, it's just a green loan, you can already get that from the bank. At the moment, the green loans that you get from the bank are predominantly a 3-year term. You usually need to already owe the bank quite a lot of money, and you need to be able to pay it back in 3 years, or otherwise it just becomes a regular part of your mortgage. What this would do would enable people like our pensioners who own their own homes to put on, say, solar power that they can then pay back when their home is eventually sold. So for our members of the community who are so-called asset rich but cash poor, this could create a real tangible difference for them, especially in the face of the power prices that we are subject to in these communities. And also some other things like double glazing and insulation and that really would have public health benefits as well, being in a warmer, drier, nicer home.
Yeah, and also what's known as government has support of this initiative too, so legislation translates.
I just, yeah, and obviously just following on from the power thing, heard on the radio this morning from the news that Central Otago, part of Aurora, is facing down the barrel of another $10 a month per power, you know, for your shower, you know, minimum. But anyway, that aside.
Well, on that too, there's currently a survey out online from the Commerce Commission, and perhaps you'd like to fill it in.
Yeah. I mean, I was really fascinated with that having a higher security than a mortgage. Has the banking sector come out and said anything in relation to that, or are not too worried?
And I guess that's right for local government. We've got the LGFA, as part of which means councils, the good great players. I couldn't comment, but I guess the scale of those loans might be so probably worried very much.
Oh, sounds exciting.
The first 2 points that you made in that, about rates deferment, as a council, we already have that power, seems to me, to defer and attach to title, the debt. And the second part about developer contributions being attached to the homeowner rather than the developer, there's no reason we couldn't do that either.
In the rates deferment though, at the moment, we would defer it and we would have to wait for the property to be sold to get the money back. Whereas under this process, the LGFA would give the council the money, which means that the ratepayers aren't carrying it. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think it's certainly economies of scale to this, which makes it more likely to be improve the uptake of it. As I understand it, you're right, we do have those abilities, but a lot of it is also be more easy experience with straightforward experiences in the actual.
I've always thought that developer contributions should be attached to the homeowner because there's a lot more flexibility about how much you charge for what. Yeah. And I'm also in favour if we can get secure cheap money so that council can act effectively as a bank for various purposes is a good idea. Whether you need an outside agency to create that, I'm not sure.
I think again, it's that scale
Scale
that
thing.
we don't run out of. Scale to do.
I was going to say is, just in terms of the solar, I think anything we can do to help enable our community to look at options for cheaper power is a great idea.
We also offer balance sheet, so
Any other questions? And the recommendation is that we receive the report, set the level of significance, approve the letter of support as attached, and note the possibility of a future discussion regarding investment into areas. Martin is happy to move that, Sarah is happy to second that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
What I didn't forget also was that, obviously the RAS was part of the regional council proposal was quite on, so I don't know, decision.
Is there going to break for lunch? After lunch, we could evening, the rest being will be taking you through, for the afternoon. I'll have a little. It's fun.